Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parame Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parame Satyamayi Parame Satyamayi Parame Satyam Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyotir Aravinda Satyam Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyotir Aravinda Satyam Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyotir Aravinda Jyotir Aravinda Jyotir Aravinda. Okay, so the topic for today is true better, feeling better. The topic for today is true love as Mother and Sri Aurobindo define it. First, let's hear what according to each of you is love. What is our understanding of what love is? Anyone? Come on.
Give and take.
Huh?
Give and take.
Give and take, okay.
I think it's expansion, like when you don't see a boundary between
A little louder, Tanu.
when you don't see a boundary between yourself and the other person.
So you say love is oneness.
Yeah, like I wouldn't say oneness, but like expansion.
Expansion, okay. Any other definitions?
It doesn't change with changing circumstances.
It doesn't change, it's eternal. Okay. So I'm going to read you two pieces which give us quite a different perspective on love. One is not directly connected to Mother and Sri Aurobindo. Second one is, the first piece is taken from Anahita Moorjani's book, if you all have heard of her. She was I think it was 2006, not too long back. It happened in Hong Kong. She was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and she was declared dead. And she kind of felt the doctor saying that she's no more. She saw her husband crying. And this is an account of her death experience. The story, of course, goes on to say that she came back and she lived and she was cured, and she's all over YouTube giving talks on her death experience. So this is from her book Dying to Be Me. pun intended. I had to die to become my real self. That's the title of her book. So she says, the day I died, oh my God, I feel incredible. I am so free and light. How come I'm not feeling any more pain in my body? Where has it all gone? Hey, why does it seem like my surroundings are moving away from me, but I'm not scared? Why am I not scared? Where has my fear gone? Oh wow, I can't find the fear anymore. These were some of my thoughts as I was being rushed to the hospital. The world around me started to appear surreal and dreamlike, and I could feel myself slip further and further away from consciousness and into coma. My organs were beginning to shut down as I succumbed to the cancer that had ravaged, no, devoured my body for the past 4 years. It was February 2nd, 2006. A day, there's medical history, I mean, all this cannot be made up, because doctors all over the world go to a hospital in Hong Kong and study, because they can't understand it. It was February 2nd, 2006, a day that will be etched in my memory forever as the day I died. Although in a coma, I was acutely aware of everything that was happening around me, including the sense of urgency and emotional frenzy of my family as they rushed me to the hospital. When we arrived, the moment the oncologist saw me, her face filled with shock. Your wife's heart may still be beating, she told my husband Danny, but she's not really there. It's too late to save her. Who is the doctor talking about? I wondered. I've never felt better in my life. And why do Mom and Danny look so frightened and worried? Mom, please don't cry. What's wrong? Are you crying because of me? Don't cry. I'm fine, really. Dear Mama, I am. I thought I was speaking those words aloud, but nothing came out. I had no voice. I wanted to hug my mother, comfort her, and tell her that I was fine. And I couldn't comprehend why I was unable to do so. Why was my physical body not cooperating? Why was I just lying there lifeless and limp when all I wanted to do was hug my beloved husband and mother, assuring them that I was fine and no longer in pain? Look, Danny, I can move around without my wheelchair. This feels so amazing. And I'm not connected to the oxygen tank anymore. Oh wow, my breathing is no longer labored, and my skin lesions are gone. They are no longer weeping and painful. After 4 agonizing years, I'm finally healed. I was in a state of pure joy and jubilation. Finally, I was free from the pain caused by the cancer that had ravaged my body. I wanted them to be happy for me. Why weren't they happy that my struggle was finally over? That their struggle was over? Why weren't they sharing my jubilation? Couldn't they see the joy I was feeling? Please, there must be something you can do, Danny and my mother pleaded with the doctor. It's only a matter of hours, the oncologist argued. Why didn't your other doctor send her to us earlier? Her organs are already shutting down, and that's why she slipped into a coma. She won't even make it through the night. You're asking for the impossible. Whatever we administer at this stage could prove too toxic and fatal for her body, as her organs aren't even functioning. Well, maybe Danny insisted, but I'm not giving up on her. My husband held my limp hand tightly as I lay there, and I was aware of the combination of anguish and helplessness in his eyes. I wanted more than anything to relieve him of his suffering. I wanted him to know how wonderful I was feeling, but I felt helpless in trying to convey it. don't listen to the doctor, Danny. Please don't listen to her. Why is she saying that? I'm still here and I'm fine, better than fine. In fact, I feel great. I couldn't understand why, but I experienced what everyone was going through, both in my family members as well as the doctors. I could actually feel their fear, anxiety, helplessness, and despair. It was as though their emotions were mine. It was as though I became them. I'm feeling your pain, darling. I can feel all your emotions. Please don't cry for me, and tell mom not to cry for me either. Please tell her. But as soon as I started to get emotionally attached to the drama taking place around me, I also felt myself being simultaneously pulled away, as though there were a bigger picture, a grander plan that was unfolding. I could feel my attachment to the scene. You can come here, Trupti, get pillows and come. I could feel the attachment to the scene receding as I began to realize that everything was perfect and going according to plan in the greater tapestry. It was then that the realization truly set in that I was actually dying. So, this actually makes you think that you are looking at what's apparent to you and you're estimating the whole thing and feeling a certain emotion about it. But actually, something so different from what you're seeing is actually happening, right? Not only in the moment of a person's moving on, but even when they are living. For example, if you understand death well, you understand life well. For example, if I look at what's happening to a person A in front of me, I'm judging it from what I can see. But there's a play of so many invisible forces working through the prakriti of the person that makes the person what the person is. So it really makes you not take your sight very literally. It makes you really see that what you see is a very small fraction, very incomplete fraction of what is really happening. And death is something that's inevitable. Every one of us is going to be in the presence of a loved one who moves on, will lose somebody or the other. And I feel we have a very incomplete education about death, because I've seen so many people so bitterly scarred for life because they could not take the death of somebody who moved on. And I hadn't planned on this, but I'm sure my mom will want me to share this because she always wanted me to share gifts. So you all know I lost my mother, but it was such a beautiful experience. I want to share this so that whenever any of us go through it, we do realize that death is not ugly. It's something immensely beautiful. It's just our lack of education about it that makes it ugly. So for me, just before my mom moved on, I felt this immense presence of love, like a field of unconditional love everywhere. And I didn't know where it was coming from. I thought my mom was, I know she was critical, but I hadn't got the news. Then I got the call saying that she has moved on. But I know that in her moving on, she came to tell me that I haven't moved on. And look, I'm here in all this beauty and all this love. So I can honestly say I've shed very few tears of grief. I've shed a lot of tears, but they've been tears of love. They've not had much grief in it. And when people messaged me, "We are sorry for your loss," that message seemed meaningless. I hadn't lost my mother. In fact, I had found a greater intimacy with her than I had even when she was alive. So I really think we should change our condolence messages. It's so it's so juvenile to tell a person, I'm sorry for your loss, heartfelt condolences. Why not celebrate the person who has moved on? Why not have more wise, less cliched I mean, even I send them. I'm not blaming only you, but we should get out of cliches about life and death, because life and death are not cliches. They are living experiences that are reborn every moment. So death is something very beautiful, but if we give in to grief, if we give in to heartache, if we give in to all the other things that come with it, we lose this very precious moment of love that we can share with the one who has passed on. And that's what that one needs. Mother and Sri Aurobindo have very clearly said, never grieve people who move on, because your grief holds them back. Just surround them with love and offer them to God. And it's ironical, I spoke to Vijay Bhai in Pondicherry about 4 days after, and he told me mother has said this. I hadn't read it. I said, Vijay Bhai, that's amazing, because that's spontaneously what I've been doing. I've not been grieving. I've just been surrounding her with love and offering her to mother. And it's been such a beautiful, like, it's not an experience I look back on and think, I never want to go through it again. I feel, wow, it was so beautiful. Not that I want to go through it again and again, but it is what it is. It's not something that has scarred me in the least bit. And I'm sharing this because it can be like that for all of us. We don't need to be scarred by death, because death is so immensely beautiful. I got lots of time to spend with her in the ICU even after she moved on, and she looked so beautiful that I sneaked in a camera, I'm not allowed, and I took a picture of her because there was so much beauty on her face. And even people who saw her body on the day could see it, and it was just there. And it's like that for all our loved ones. We don't have to send them off with grief and all that. That's just lack of education. We just need a much better education about death. So coming back to Anahita Moorjani, but yeah.
That when you know that your parents has lived their life and everything is sound and they have their age to go, then I think you can still accept. But when it's a sudden death, the sudden calamity by which the death is happening, then it's very difficult.
But Payal, that's the time the person needs your love even more, because that we are exploring love. That energy of love is what makes the passage to the other world easy. If you get caught up in your grief, if you tell the person, how did you go, so unfair, because the person's there, just the body is gone, the person's listening to every thought you're thinking. How are you helping the person transit well? If you're only offering the person grief, how will the person move happily to another world? So it's very important to send off a person with love, no matter how they've died. What they've died is their karma, but you can help them in transition if you really surround them with the energy of love. Tarini, come here. So coming back to Anahita Moorjani, so Tarini, we are speaking of a lady, Anahita Moorjani, who died and then came back and wrote about her experience of death. So we are halfway through it. So Anahita saying she could feel the pain of her husband and whatever, but as soon as I started to get emotionally attached to the drama taking place around me, I also felt myself being simultaneously pulled away, as though there were a bigger picture, a grander plan that was unfolding. I could feel my attachment to the scene receding as I began to realize that everything was perfect and going according to plan in the greater tapestry. It was then that the realization truly set in that I was actually dying. Oh, I'm dying. Is this what it feels like? It's nothing like I ever imagined. It was so beautifully peaceful and calm, and I feel healed at last. I then understood that even if my physical body stopped, everything is still perfect in the greater tapestry of life. For we never truly die. This is so true. We never truly die. I was still acutely aware of every detail unfolding before me as I observed the medical team wheeling my near lifeless body to the intensive care unit. They were surrounding me in an emotional frenzy, hooking me up to machines while poking and prodding with needles and tubes. Varun, come here. Do you need a backrest? Okay, then sit. I felt no attachment to my limp body as it lay there on the hospital bed. It didn't feel as though it were mine. It looked far too small and insignificant to house what I was experiencing. I felt free, liberated, and magnificent. Every pain, ache, sadness, and sorrow was gone. I was completely unencumbered, and I couldn't recall feeling this way before, not ever. I then had a sense of being encompassed by something that I can only describe as pure, unconditional love. This is how beautiful death is. I had a sense of being encompassed by something that I can only describe as pure, unconditional love. But even the word love doesn't do justice to it. It was the deepest kind of caring, and I'd never experienced it before. It was beyond any physical form of affection that we can imagine, and it was unconditional. This was mine regardless of what I'd ever done. I didn't have to do anything or behave a certain way to deserve it. This love was for me no matter what. I felt completely bathed and renewed in this energy, and it made me feel as though I belonged, as though I'd finally arrived after all those years of struggle, pain, anxiety, and fear. I had finally come home. And of course, then the story goes on that Anahita Murjani is given a choice whether she wants to come back or not. And she chose to come back, and her body was ridden with cancer. But in her near-death experience, she had the realization that her cancer had been caused by fear. And she said, the thing you can fear more than anything is death. I had gone into death and seen that it was so beautiful that I couldn't fear anything ever again. And because my fear was gone, I knew my cancer was going to heal. And she stayed in hospital, and they kept taking her cerebrospinal fluid to check for cancer, and they kept doing the test again and again, and she said, but why are you redoing it so many times? So the doctor says, because we can't find any cancer cells in it, which is impossible, so our test must be wrong, so we are doing it again and again. But she just spontaneously healed. Stage 4 cancer. It's a medical miracle, but this is documented. Her papers are available in the hospital in Hong Kong. And if you go on YouTube, you'll find several beautiful talks by her. She's perfectly well. This happened 2006. She's a public speaker all over the world. It's a beautiful book if you want to read, called Dying to Be Me. So that's Anahita Murjani's story. I chose this because it gives us a very different understanding of what love is. Rohan said love is give and take. We feel love is attention. We have so many human definitions of love, but this defeats all of them, right? What she experienced in the moment of dying. And I feel death is not really a death, it's just a transition. So if death is not there, then all our life is just this continuous field of unconditional love. But we are not conscious of it because we are too caught up in our momentary surface personality. But that's why Kabirji used to say, Pani mein meen pyasi, dekhat aaye hasi. The fish is thirsty in an ocean of water, because most of us at some point or the other will complain in our mind, I'm not loved enough. I wish I could have more love. I mean, it's the same story in every human mind at some point or the other. But that's because we are expecting human beings to love us. And the way human beings are made, they are imperfect. Mother has said every human being will let you down, accept it. Only the divine is for you if you are for the divine. We should enjoy human beings, and whatever love we get from them is a bonus. But don't expect them to fulfill your need for love, because they can't. Your need for love needs to be fulfilled from a deeper and higher source. Okay? So now this is a passage on the biography of the mother by Georges van Rechem. So it says, the ashram was flooded with visitors, all looking expectantly forward to the 24th November darshan. The 3 annual darshan days were always festive occasions, for they were the only times when the disciples and devotees could see Sri Aurobindo up close. Many have reported their impressions. We quote here the experience of Rhoda Lecoq, an American philosopher, as described in her book, The Radical Thinkers. So she came for a darshan of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and she writes her experience. Darshan Tarini is when Mother and Sri Aurobindo were in their body. They didn't see people except on certain days. They would come and sit down, and people could get their darshan. So there were specific darshan days, and the author happened to be in Pondicherry on a darshan day, and she describes her experience. As a Westerner, the idea of merely passing by these two, Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, with nothing being said, had struck me as a bit ridiculous. I was still unfamiliar with the Hindu idea that such a silent meeting could afford an intensely spiritual impetus. I watched as I came up in line, and I noted that the procedure was to stand quietly before the two of them for a few silent moments, then to move on at a gesture of Sri Aurobindo. What happened next was completely unexpected. As I stepped into a radius of about 4 feet, there was the sensation of moving into some kind of a force field. I intuitively knew it was the force of love, but not what ordinary humans usually mean by the term. These two were geared straight up. They were not paying attention to me as ordinary parents might have done. Yet, this unattachment seemed just the thing that healed. Normally, the thing in love that hurts us is if people don't need us enough. We feel loved if we feel needed. In other words, if the person's attached to us, we feel they love us. But the real truth is, the more I need, the less I love. Because my neediness will always get in the way of me really loving the person for what the person is. I'll always look at what I'm not getting from the person, and getting stuck up in that narrative of what I'm not getting from the person, how can I really love the person? So what this author is saying, that they seemed completely detached from me. There was nothing emotional in their love for me. No, come beta, I'll hug you, none of that. But this non-attachment was the very thing that seemed to heal. Yet this unattachment seemed just the thing that healed. Suddenly I loved them both as spiritual parents. Then all thoughts ceased. I was perfectly aware of where I was. It was not hypnotism, as one Stanford University friend later suggested. It was simply that during those few minutes my mind became utterly still. It seemed that I stood there a very long and uncounted time, for there was no time. Only many years later did I describe this experience as my having experienced the timeless in time. When there at Darshan, there was not the least doubt in my mind that I had met two people who had experienced what they claimed. They were Gnostic beings. They had realized this new consciousness, which Sri Aurobindo calls supramental. So what's important is, when this author was in the presence of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, she says, intuitively I knew it was the force of love, but not what ordinary humans usually mean by the term. Okay, now Mother's words on love. Love, the eternal force, has no clinging, no desire, no hunger for possession, no self-regarding attachment. It is, in its pure movement, the seeking for union of the self with the divine, a seeking absolute and regardless of all other things. Love divine gives itself and asks for nothing. What human beings have made of it, we do not need to say. They have turned it into an ugly and repulsive thing. And yet, even in human beings, the first contact of love does bring down something of its purer substance. They become capable for a moment of forgetting themselves. For a moment, its divine touch awakens and magnifies all that is fine and beautiful. But afterwards there comes to the surface the human nature, full of its impure demands, asking for something in exchange, bartering for what it gives. See, like we said, our definition of love is give and take. But Mother says that's not love at all. Not bartering, not exchanging, clamoring for its own inferior satisfactions, distorting and soiling what was divine. Love is obviously the most potent and integral of all powers. So we've done all our yoga classes this week based on this one passage, because it just says it all. Love is obviously the most potent and integral of all powers. Integral in the sense that it applies in all cases. It is even more powerful than the power of purification, which dissolves all bad will and which is, as it were, the master of the adverse forces, but which has not the direct power of transformation. So power of purification is a force that wants to destroy negative things, to create way for good things, which is good. At a very basic level, you see a negative person in your life, you want to get rid of that person. You want to purify the space around you, which is fair enough. I mean, that's not exactly what the power of purification is, but I'm giving it to you at a level which you can understand. So, the power of purification first dissolves in order to allow the transformation afterwards. It destroys one form in order to be able to create a better one. Whereas love need not dissolve in order to transform. This is important. When you bring to the moment the energy of love, you don't have to get rid of anything. And the mothers called the mother of love, right? There are books written on her called the mother of love, and her most potent weapon was love. So she said that I never work by destroying, because if I the way things are so negative that if I was to destroy, I'd have to destroy everything. I don't destroy anything, I work by transforming what is. And that makes sense because her whole way was a way of love. So we remember, I mean, no point talking in the air, but few classes back I had read out a passage from Amal Kiran's. Amal Kiran was a very dear disciple of Sri Aurobindo, but somehow his mind had created difficulty for him in accepting the mother. So after Sri Aurobindo left, he writes that he was in a great revolt against the mother, and when the mother called him, he answered, I don't want to misquote him, I'm telling you from memory. He wrote that I replied back very rudely that if she's called me just to tick me off, I'm not interested in meeting her, and she shouldn't hold it against me that I love Sri Aurobindo more than I love her, because it's a way for me. And he wrote all that. And then mother sent a message that please come, just that, after all this. So he went to her, and he was full of I'll tell her this and I'll tell her that, and he went into her presence and she just said, Amal, do you think I could not love somebody who was as dear to Sri Aurobindo as you are? She just said that after all this, he publicly said all this is her first address to him. And the moment she said that, Amal said, I sobbed and I sobbed and I sobbed. And that was her way. She never ticked, I mean, yeah, of course, when ticking off was needed, she ticked off. But she knew that in Amal Kiran's case, and nothing was personal for her. She did what was best for that human being. If that human being needed a ticking off, she would give it. But in Amal Kiran's case, a ticking off would have made no sense. So she never ticked him off. She just loved him, and she changed him with her love. That was her way. So, the power of purification first dissolves in order to allow transformation afterwards. It destroys one form in order to be able to create a better one. Whereas love need not dissolve in order to transform. It possesses the direct power of transformation. That's what we see in Mother all the time, the direct power of transformation. Love is like a flame that changes what is hard into something malleable, even sublimates this malleable thing into a kind of purified vapor. It does not destroy, it transforms. In its essence, in its origin, love is like a flame, a white flame that overcomes all resistances. You can experience this yourself. Whatever the difficulty in your being, whatever the burden of accumulated error, ignorance, incapacity and bad will, a single second of this pure, essential, supreme love dissolves it as in an all-powerful flame. A single moment and a whole past can disappear. A single instant in which you touch it in its essence and a whole burden is consumed. I don't know if we are understanding the impact of this passage, because Mother has really given us the key to living in this passage. How has she given us the key to life in this passage? Anyone? No? She's saying that whatever the adversity, love, which is the most powerful force in the world, if you bring a moment of that vibration of true love to the moment, every adversity instantly changes. So when things go wrong, we get caught up in our human reactions, right? We get caught up in our reactions of hurt, pain, protecting ourselves, protecting our loved ones, perhaps if the person's being mean, whatever. But we forget to tune into the energy of love. But if we tune into the energy of love in the moment of adversity, the whole adversity gets dissolved. So, Bijal, you had a beautiful passage. Would you like to come and share it? My phone, come.
Okay, so this is from Mother's Agenda. I'm just reading it out. I'm audible, right?
Little louder. Little louder.
Okay, this morning I had an amusing experience with roses. There was a closed bud, big, hard, big and hard, red. I took it, looked at it, then my fingers ran over the flower like that, and gesture showing the flower opening up. One petal after another, and yet another.
She's just holding it in her hands and looking at it. Can you imagine? And the rose is opening petal by petal and petal. What must be in her gaze?
Yes, before my very eyes. It was such a pretty sight. Opening up, happy, as if saying to me, "Oh, how happy I am." It would be lovely if one could take people's consciousness as one takes a flower, and then, because one looks at it and holds it, and the vibration is that vibration of supreme love, it opens up like that, becomes organized and grows magnificent. It would be fine if one could do that. Mother laughs, perhaps one can.
And your experience with it?
Oh,
नहीं बोलना है?
as in, okay, so I read this passage and I just held the aspiration in my heart, and I, of course, forgot about it, but Mother didn't. And
No, so your aspiration was to
Yeah.
be like mother, to be able to hold people like a rose and make them blossom in love.
Yeah, and bit by bit, I saw that Mother was helping me put it in practice. I remember, so I'm not fond of meeting my relatives so much, but we had Raksha Bandhan and all that, and I had to meet them. And I first made up my mind that, okay, I won't go, maybe I can skip it, but this vibration, I could feel it, and I was like, maybe I'll just take this and I'll go and I'll meet everyone. And it was a joy meeting them. So yeah.
Thank you, Bijal. Very beautiful.
In alignment with the caterpillar thing you were talking about,
Yes.
that to look at every person, the good and the bad.
To see the coming butterfly in the caterpillar. So, can you just imagine this mother holding a rose which is closed, and there's so much power in her gaze, so much love in it, that petal by petal it's opening. And what a beautiful thing if we could hold each person like that rose in our gaze, like Siddhi says, to look for the butterfly in the caterpillar, to see the beauty of a full-blown rose in a bud, then how much more beautifully it'll open than our constant judgments. Really, what stops us from loving is we are constantly judging, no? And Mother Teresa says it so beautifully, when I judge, there's no time to love. And how true, really think about it, unless you know everything about a person since the beginning of time, whatever you judge about the person is pointless, right? It's going to be, you don't know the road the person's walked, where the shoe has pinched him, what are the scars. You don't know anything, and you're judging what you're seeing. So it's a very every judgment in my mind is an unfair judgment, however right it seems to you, since you don't know the whole context and you're judging, it's unfair. What do you all feel about this? Yeah?
How does one assess?
You don't need to assess.
Because how will you transact without even a basic understanding of that?
Why do you need to you see, that will come, but look, even in listening to me, how many unnecessary judgments have crossed your mind about every perception? Good, bad, whatever. Do you really need those judgments? Now, they are part of our human nature, we can't do away with them. But at least let's not let them hijack us. Very often, we believe a judgment so strongly that it biases us, it creates conflicts, it pushes us away from people. At least let's not let that happen. So, we did this very lovely practice in the morning in our yoga class. Let me share it with all of you. Sit up straight. Shut your eyes. And remember Mother's words that love is a vibration straight from the divine, and it is the most powerful force in the world. It is one force that directly transforms any crisis, any difficulty. It has the direct power of transformation. So, very often, many of us have a unhealthy relationship with ourselves. We are deeply guilty about something from the past, or critical so easily about ourselves, or very arrogant, and that arrogance also comes from a lack of love for ourselves. We are trying to compensate with that arrogance, because when we really love, there's no space for arrogance. So whatever the unhealthy nature of the relationship we have with ourselves, we can change it if we bring to ourselves a moment of love. So we remember that if I can't really judge anyone correctly, if I don't know everything about them from the beginning of time, then any judgment I make about myself is also inaccurate, because I don't know everything about myself from the beginning of time. So can I be kind to myself, however I am, whatever the package deal? Can I hold myself like a closed rosebud and look at myself with that kind of metta and love in my eyes, that petal by petal I blossom in my own gaze? So with that kind of look at myself, let me send myself metta or loving kindness. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free. Keep looking at yourself like that bud and see yourself opening petal by petal, blossoming with your own self-blessing. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free. And then any person whose thought gives you unhappiness, anxiety, with whom you're facing some kind of crisis, and remembering Mother's words that love is the most powerful force in the world that has the direct power to transform any adversity. So hold that person also in your heart, in your gaze, like a closed bud. Remember, unless you know everything about the person since the beginning of time, the judgments you have about the person are irrelevant and false. And see that person blossoming in your gaze, petal by petal, as you send that person metta. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free. And one last time, these phrases directed towards that person. And before you open your eyes, a beautiful practice is whenever any judgmental thought or thought of ill will or anxiety arises towards any being, immediately transform it to this vibration of love by sending the person metta. That's the best help you can give a difficult situation. Because whenever you feel ill will towards a person, as Eknath Ishwaran says, it's more than just one impaired relationship. You are breaking your connection to your source. When you break your connection of goodwill to a single strand in that source, and slowly open your eyes. So, Mother continues. I'm reading this bit again. In its essence, in its origin, love is like a flame, a white flame which overcomes all resistances. You can experience this yourself. Whatever the difficulty in your being, whatever the burden of accumulated error, ignorance, incapacity and bad will, a single second of this pure, essential, supreme love dissolves it as in an all-powerful flame. A single moment and a whole past can disappear. A whole past can disappear. A single moment of really loving a person and the whole past, your karmic past and everything can disappear. That's what Mother says. A single touch in it, in which you touch it in its essence, the whole burden is consumed. Yeah?
This thing, so if I have a problem with you, then I have to love you for a second and disappear, even if I love Vijay for a single second, that problem will be
It helps, but you know, Tanu, what I find is love is not polarized. When you're in a state of love, you just love everything. It's not Bijal or Nash or whatever. Like what I was sharing with you about what I experienced just before my mother passed on. In that moment, it wasn't just loving mom, it was loving everything and everyone.
No, yeah, in that moment, right? But like, so supposing I love you a lot, I do. But then, no, I meant like if I'm like loving you in that moment, then okay, maybe it's like everything is like rose tinted, right?
No, it's not rose tinted, it's reality tinted. When Tanu, it's not human sentimental love, it's very different.
But am I saying that but your problems with someone else in your past with someone else will also disappear by loving someone else?
By
And then
truly loving, not in that, not, see, not love as an emotion, love as a feeling, it's different. Sri Aurobindo has distinguished between an emotion and a feeling. He says a feeling comes from the psychic and it's totally equanimous, it has no polarity, it doesn't make you high or low. An emotion comes from the Latin word disturbance. An emotion disturbs you, even if you love, you get excited. The human love actually makes you unconscious. You're only thinking of the person, you're not present to the moment. That's not love. It's a different love that he's talking about.
Is it like what mother says about all love is a yearning of the one?
Yeah, in a way. I don't know you. How do you describe it? You when
so
you
then love is like constant. Like then I'll not have problems with anyone because I'll just like love everyone.
when you're in that space of love, but you can fall out of that space also.
Yeah, that's the problem. No?
So when you fall out of it, you'll have problems. Then those spaces of being in that space will be longer and longer. Yeah.
Can I ask a question which is not directly related to this?
Yes.
When you spoke about what you felt or what Anahita Murjani's experience of that total bliss, then if it is good.
No, I didn't have any total bliss. Don't misquote. Anahita Murjani's total bliss. Yeah.
Why did she choose to come back, or why does anyone choose to come back?
Because
why is there rebirth?
no, so that probably because she knew her soul's mission was to come back to human beings and give them an education on death. Because I think children should be educated in school about what death is. So many of my students in adult life have seen so scarred because they could not handle the death of a parent, and then it's too late to undo the damage. So what Anahita Murjani has given as an education on death, I mean it must be a beautiful mission I'm thinking her soul chose to do.
In a book she writes that when she came back, she said she couldn't bear the fact that there were people unhappy. After death and she came back.
That she was so happy and her loved ones are so miserable because they don't know anything about death. All love is a yearning of the one for the one. It finds its supreme expression in the bliss of union. Between the two, there are all the phases of its universal manifestation. At the beginning of this manifestation, love is in the purity of its origin, composed of two movements, two complementary poles of the impulsion towards complete fusion. On one side, it is the supreme power of attraction, and on the other side, the irresistible need of absolute self-giving. This is Greek and Latin for some of us, but it will make sense to some of us who've experienced it, otherwise it won't. What Mother is saying is that, okay, can I come back to this after a particular passage where it will make more sense? Okay, this passage. Mother was asked a question, were there any beings before this descent of love? Were they conscious? So Mother says that to understand the creation of the world, I'll give you a story, but she says don't take it very literally because it sounds childish. But there's no other way I can explain creation to you. So she says at the beginning of manifestation, the source created four powerful beings: the being of truth, the being of light, the being of love, and the being of life. And light, love, truth, and light. And as they started working in life, each started feeling separate from the source and started wanting to shine in its own glory, like the story of Lucifer, the fallen angel who wanted to be more powerful than God. So the separation happened, and truth became falsehood, life became death, everything went chaotic. So the Supreme Mother, now Supreme Mother, who can understand her? She's not just a form, she's an energy also. This form came years later, but she was always there. So she appealed to God that save my creation, and he sanctioned her to descend into creation as the field of love. And this mother calls the Holocaust of the Divine Mother, because she had to leave everything that she was and descend into everything that was the opposite of what she is. And she says that love is there in matter and working to create more and more conscious, to save creation. Love descended. So the disciple asked Mother that before love descended, were there any conscious beings? So this is the answer Mother gives. There were no terrestrial beings. The terrestrial world, the earth, came into existence after the descent into the inconscient, not before. The gradual formation of the different stages of being from the supreme to the most material region is subsequent to the inconscient. When precisely the consciousness began its creation? Mother says, don't take what I say quite literally, as though it were a little history of another country, for it is not that. I'm trying to make you understand, that's all. The first manifestation of the creative consciousness was just an emanation of consciousness, of conscious light. And when this emanation separated itself from its origin, how did it separate itself? By developing an ego, by hunger for power, by hunger to shine. The Divine Mother, or the love, struggle to rescue us from death, which is negation. If you look at lines of death, he's constantly telling Savitri, who represents the Divine Mother, that be the two-legged worm you were meant to be. He's always trying to tell her that man is no good and you are no good. So the inconscient is the voice of negation in us, the voice in us which rises every now and then to negate our own light and negate the light of others. So I'm going to read you bits of the debate between Death and Savitri from the book Savitri. And this is a dialogue that goes on in each of us all the time. Negation and an assertion of love. Negation and an assertion of love. So, Savitri tells Death, O Death, thou look'st on an unfinished world, assailed by thee, because the whole world is held by the inconscient, and of its road unsure, peopled by imperfect minds and ignorant lives, and sayest God is not and all is vain. How shall the child already be man? You know, very often we look at the world and we feel it's doomed. Human beings are doomed. They are too gone, too terrible. That's the voice of death inside us. And the love inside us would tell Death that you are looking at an unfinished world, assailed by thee and of its road unsure, peopled by imperfect minds and ignorant lives, and sayest God is not and all is vain. How shall the child already be the man? Because he is infant, shall he never grow? Because he is ignorant, shall he never learn? In a small fragile seed, a great tree lurks. In a tiny gene, a thinking being is shut. A little element in a little sperm, it grows and is conqueror and a sage. Then wilt thou spew out death, God's mystic truth, deny the occult spiritual miracle. Still wilt thou say there is no spirit, no God? So come to page 14, and but to the woman death the God replied, with the ironic laughter of his voice, discouraging the labor of the stars. Even so men cheat the truth with splendid thoughts. Thus wilt thou hire the glorious charlatan mind to weave from his ideals gossamer air. Gossamer is fine like lace, a fine raiment for thy body's nude desires and thy heart's clutching greedy passion cloth. So he's trying to write off Savitri's love for Satyavan as just a woman's love for a man. And he's saying, you're giving me all this high-fluting philosophy, but it's actually something as basic as this. So the voice of death is always trying to negate anything high, anything noble, anything beautiful, and bringing in the voice of cut and dry reason to say, no, it's just ordinary, it's just this. And thy heart's clutching greedy passion cloth, daub not the web of life with magic hues. Make rather thy thought a plain and faithful glass, reflecting matter and mortality, and know thy soul a product of the flesh, a made-up self in a constructed world. Thy words are large murmurs in a mystic dream, for how in the soiled heart of man could dwell the immaculate grandeur of thy dream-built God? He's telling you God is a dream you've built, and in man's soiled heart, how can such a God stay? Or who can see the face and form of divine in the naked two-legged worm thou callest man? So Savitri replies, yes, I am human, yet shall man by me, since in humanity waits his hour the God, trample thee down to reach the immortal heights. Since mother's there in each of us as a presence of love, she's saying my presence in each man will equip them to trample you down, transcending grief and pain and fate and death. Yes, my humanity is a mask of God. He dwells in me, the mover of my acts, turning the great wheel of his cosmic work. I am the living body of his light. I am the thinking instrument of his power. I incarnate wisdom in an earthly breast. I am his conquering and unslayable will. The formless spirit drew in me its shape. In me are the nameless and the secret name. My heart is wiser than reason's thought. So the voice of death is very reasonable. It's always bringing reason in to negate anything high and lofty and full of love. So Savitri is saying, my heart is wiser than the reason's thoughts. My heart is stronger than thy bonds, O death. It sees and feels the one heartbeat in all. It feels the high transcendence, sun-like hands. It sees the cosmic spirit at its work. In the dim night, it lies alone with God. My heart's strength can carry the grief of the universe and never falter from its luminous track. Its white, tremendous orbit through God's peace. It can drink up the sea of all delight and never lose the white spiritual touch, the calm that broods in the deep infinite. And the last thing, we come to almost the last page of Savitri, page 724, when Savitri finally gets Satyavan back, and when she comes back, she is all golden and luminous, and when people find her, they tell her that, Savitri, how come you're looking so radiant? What's the secret of your change? It's visible to our eyes. And she sums up the whole message of Savitri in these few lines. She says, awakened through the meaning of my heart, that to feel love and oneness is to live. And this, the magic of our golden change, is all the truth I know or seek. So what a powerful message Sri Aurobindo is giving us, that finally all that matters is how much you loved, how much you tuned into the vibration of love. Because after the whole saga of Savitri, at the end it culminates in this message that she's saying, awaken to the meaning of my heart, that to feel love and oneness is to live. You can't live without it. And this is the magic of our golden change. What you're seeing in me, this is the magic, is all the truth I know or seek. So beautifully said, that finally we all have so many goals now. We want to be this, we want to be that. But in the final moment of moving on, the only thing that will really matter is how much did I love and how much was I loved, isn't it? What else will matter? So, and that's why Krishna says that live your life poised in the moment of dying. If in that moment just before dying all these things won't be relevant, don't blow them out of proportion now and lose out on your opportunities to connect and love, because finally that's all that matters. So now, since my mother was a great regular at Savitri classes while she was able-bodied, we used to keep a chair for her here, and she used to sit, and she couldn't hear much, but she loved me so much, she used to just be happy to come and look at me talk. And she used to come Saturday after Saturday. So I'm sure she's with us here. We'll maintain 5 minutes of silence. I've requested Hetal to play some music, and some of you have a face to her, some of you don't. But I'll be grateful for whatever prayers you can offer for her.